Good evening. You have all the council members present. Very good.
Recording in progress.
Shall we get started?
Mayor Garcia, we are just getting the email out for the proclamation.
Good.
So it'll be just a moment on that. We can go?
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Call the meeting to order, the regular city council meeting for October 5th, 2021. We have the flag, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Abdamos.
Here.
Councilmember Oro.
Here.
Councilmember Washington.
Here.
Vice Mayor Joseph.
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. Moving on to report on closed session confirmation reportable action. Mr. Ross.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, you convened an open session at 4:31 p.m. to ascertain if there were any public comments on the matter agendized for closed session. You determined there were not. You adjourned to closed session at 4:31. There was one item agendized for closed session. It was anticipated litigation with 3 matters to be considered. With respect to each of those matters, I will do a written report upon return from closed session consistent with the provisions of Government Code Section 54957.1. You concluded closed session at 6:25 p.m. in anticipation of open session. That would conclude the report unless there are questions.
Any questions from council members? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Ross. You have the preamble to the community can participate in the meeting, please.
Yes. Thank you for joining us for the City of American Canyon City Council meeting. This meeting is being held entirely virtually in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the Zoom platform, the meeting is broadcast on cable TV channel 28 on YouTube and streamed live on the city's website. Public participation during this meeting is encouraged, and instructions for using the Zoom feature Raise Your Hand are included in the public comment non-agenda items section of the meeting agenda. The agenda for this and all upcoming meetings is available on the Meetings and Agendas page of the city's website at www.cityofamericancanyon.org. Also, there is our new e-comment link where members of the public can submit written comments or pre-register to speak on any agenda items. All votes at tonight's meeting will be taken by roll call. Please be patient if we experience any technical difficulties. This concludes the introductory remarks.
Mr. Mayor, you're on mute.
Now to city clerk's announcement pursuant to Government Code 54952.3. It is as stated in the agenda. Now to proclamations and presentations. We have the October 21st is Filipino American History Month. I think we have some people wanting to attend on this.
We do, Mayor Garcia. We have Elmer who has been pulled over.
Good evening.
Good evening, welcome. It's a
Hi.
great pleasure. I'm reading this proclamation. City of American Canyon Proclamation, October 2021 is Filipino American History Month. Whereas Filipino Americans are one of the largest ethnic groups in the state of California and the city of American Canyon. And whereas the earliest documented evidence of Filipinos in the United States dates to October 18, 1587. when Filipino mariners on Spanish sailing vessels landed in Morro Bay, California. And whereas over the course of 433 years, Filipino Americans have contributed greatly to the freedom, prosperity, and diversity culture of the United States. And whereas in 2009, the month of October was first recognized as Filipino American History Month in California to promote and reflect on Philippine history and culture. And whereas the Filipino Americans of American Canyon, born in the Philippines and many other countries, who speak a multitude of languages, whose immigrant stories are varied as the thousands of islands which make up the Philippines, are all Filipino by virtue of their shared ancestry. And whereas American Canyon is a very diverse city, with all religions, ethnicities, and languages represented and coexisting in a community that has noteworthy history of embracing its diverse nature, including the active engagement of Filipino Americans in civic organizations, in the appointment of elected Filipino Americans to various city commissions and to the city council. And whereas it is important to educate our youth, including the youth of our newest student wellness program, FLAG, Filipino Life and Generation Group, are the lasting significant contributions of Filipino Americans in local government, businesses, the medical and legal professions, and education, religion, and everyday life. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Leo Garcia, Mayor of the City of American Canyon, on behalf of the American Canyon City Council, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Filipino American History Month in the City of American Canyon, and encourage residents to learn more about the history and contributions of Filipino Americans. Congratulations.
Thank you.
A few comments if you wish, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. In behalf of the Film Association of American Canyon and the Filipino community at large, I would like to convey our sincerest gratitude to our city government, led by Mayor Leon Garcia, and particularly Council Member David Oro, for their continued support to the Filipino people, our culture, and heritage. It is our mission to continue, propagate, and impart our core values to the rest of the community to ensure that future generations of Filipino Americans will benefit from what we have started. Again, thank you. I wish everyone a blessed evening and mabuhay.
Mabuhay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on now to our next proclamation.
Mayor Garcia, we have Andrea Ramirez, who is here to accept that proclamation.
Very good. Did you wish to comment?
Yes, please.
Oh, it's for the next one, Mayor Garcia.
Oh, the next one?
Mhm.
Domestic violence. Okay, very good.
Yes.
Let me read the proclamation. City of American Canyon Proclamation. Proclaiming the month October 2021 as the City of American Canyon as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas the news, NEWS, Domestic Violence and Sexual Abuse Services, is commemorating 40 years of service to survivors of domestic violence in Napa County, having opened the first confidential safe house in October 5th, 1981, and began providing safety to those escaping abuse. Whereas every year since 1989, the United States Congress has proclaimed October as the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, renewing our community's commitment to standing against DV, domestic violence, and meeting the needs of survivors. And whereas domestic violence is a public health concern that impacts the well-being and success of individual community members, as well as the community as a whole. Data from the U.S. Center of Disease Control National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey show that nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men in the United States report experiencing severe physical violence from an intimate partner in their lifetime, while nearly half of all U.S. adults have experienced psychological aggression, such as humiliating or controlling behavior from their partner. Domestic violence can cause severe physical and emotional distress for survivors, who are more likely to become suicidal and lose economic opportunities from the abuse. Children who have witnessed abuse are likely to experience abuse themselves and are often used to control other family members which can have lifelong impacts on their mental health. Aside from obvious physical and emotional trauma inflicted, domestic violence contributes to over 10% of all intentional violent deaths, not including suicide, and cost Americans over $8 billion a year. Whereas by observing October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we show that our community is committed to supporting survivors and working toward the prevention of domestic violence among future generations. And whereas in fiscal year 2019-2020, News provided services to over 1,500 of our Napa County community members, including 24-hour response, assistance with protective orders, safety and shelter, permanent housing, financial aid, support groups, and children's services for the issues related to violence in the home. And now, therefore, I, Leon Garcia, on behalf of the City Council of the City of American Canyon, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month and encourage all residents of American Canyon to honor domestic violence survivors and those who serve them during this month and throughout the year.
Thank you. So on behalf of News, I would like to thank the City of American Canyon for its recognition of Domestic Violence Awareness Month this October. This October is a significant month for News as News commemorates 40 years of service in Napa County. Domestic violence affects so many in our community, and it is by both providing services to survivors and increasing awareness of the issue that we will be able to break the cycle of intimate partner violence. Thank you for your continued support of News and of survivors across Napa Valley.
Thank you.
Thanks for the service you provide. It means so much to so many members of our community. And unfortunately, knows no boundaries of domestic violence. So we're all in this together. And I think awareness certainly brings a lot to a better understanding and how we can help. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Proclamation, honoring Code Enforcement Officer.
Yes. Okay. I have Tiffany Ford, who is our new code enforcement officer, and also Frank Cooper and Laura Welch here.
Welcome. Good to have you here with this proclamation this evening. City of American Canyon Proclamation, honoring Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week, October 2nd, 2021 to October 8th, 2021. Whereas code enforcement officers provide safety, health, and welfare to citizens and communities throughout the United States, state of California by educating and, when necessary, enforcing local, state, and federal laws. And whereas code enforcement officers have a challenging and demanding role and often not receive recognition for the job they do to maintain and improve residents' quality of life and business economic vitality. And whereas code enforcement officers requires extensive knowledge in the field of building, zoning, housing, animal control, environmental, health and safety, life safety. And whereas code enforcement officers possess expertise and training such as code enforcement certification, California law enforcement telecommunication system certification, mediation, and conflict resolution. And whereas code enforcement officers have a highly visible role in the community they serve and respect individuals' lifestyle choices when explaining neighborhood preservation rules and regulations. And whereas code enforcement officers often work nights and weekends, sometimes under dangerous conditions to keep American Canyon residents and businesses safe from hazards. And whereas the state legislature proclaimed the second week of October is Code Enforcement Officer Appreciation Week in the state of California. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of American Canyon hereby recognizes and expresses its appreciation for the dedication and service of our code enforcement officers. Dated, this is going to be, this is November 5, 2021. It's a little correction there, folks. Sorry about that. But, you know, thank you. We really appreciate having you on board with us. And you do a very vital work. And I know sometimes it's not probably the most pleasant situation to be involved with. But I think your training and background and experience helps you help people navigate through what we have to accomplish. So thank you.
And Mayor and Council, if you don't mind, I wanted to introduce Tiffany Ford, our new code enforcement officer. We're thrilled to have her join us. She came from the city of Vacaville, and we had many applicants for this position, and she was our top choice. And so we're very happy to have her join our American Canyon family. Jim Cannon was kind enough to come back and help provide some orientation. And Tiffany has already solved some code enforcement cases. So she jumped right in, and really excited to have her and thrilled. I also wanted to introduce, although you may already know Laura Welch. She is a relatively new permit technician. She filled Teresa's position after she was promoted. Laura showed tremendous initiative to become certified in the permit technician position while she was still in her previous position. And she filled a very important role during some of the transitions with the clerk's office. And so really happy to have Laura join that position. She, of course, is a longtime American Canyon resident, grew up here. And so she has roots in this town, and just it's a busting with pride to have Laura join us and Tiffany. And we don't get to do this very often, so I'm a little excited.
Well, very good. Well, Tiffany, welcome aboard. Laura, it's just great to know that you're moving up in the world. Thank you for taking on your responsibilities, really. So you both going to do a very important job in American Canyon. We really value you as one of our staff, both of you. Thank you.
Welcome, ladies.
Hello. Now moving on to public comment. Items not on the agenda. Have we received any?
We have not received public comments, not on the agenda. We have not received any written public comments. I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay, very good. We'll move on then to any agenda changes. Any agenda changes decided by council members? We're moving on now then to our consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve, or is there an interest in discussing one of the items further?
There's no interest in discussion. I will move to adopt the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
I'm sorry, who is the second?
Washington.
Washington, thank you very much. Okay. Councilmember Abadamos?
Yes.
Councilmember Oro?
Yes.
Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph?
Yes.
Mayor Garcia?
Yes, thank you, council.
Thank you.
Public hearings, there are none to see, no public hearings at this item, this time. All right. Business, we'll move on to that. Calpers contract amendment.
Good evening, council members. This item is part of a series of routine items you've seen, first with the resolution and then with the first reading. And this is the second final reading for the contract amendment. We do this annually as part of what we have in our PERS contract and with our MOUs, and it's required by PERS.
So this isn't a public hearing item, so
Business item. Yep.
if there's
Any discussion needed on this, council?
none for me,
We have been through just at length in the past.
do we have any public comment? Otherwise,
Well, that's, was going to ask that, but I don't see any action, decided discussion from council. Any public comment received on this?
We have not received public comment on this item, and there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay, well, I'll close the comment and return to council for desired action for the discussion.
well, if there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion. We, let's see, waive second reading and read by title only and adopt ordinance number 2021 next in order, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of American Canyon authorizing an amendment to the contract between the City Council of the City of American Canyon and the Board of Administration of the California Public Employees Retirement System that will implement cost sharing per the negotiated contracts for all classic local miscellaneous members in the Teamsters Local 315 General Unit and Teamsters Local 315 Mid-Management Unit and members of the Unrepresented Compensation Program Unit.
I'll second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamas,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
and Mayor Garcia.
Yes, thank you, council. Moving along to our next business item. Item 9, City Manager Employment Agreement.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Excuse me. This item is a contract for the continuation of my services as city manager. And in order to move forward, it needs to be approved at a city council meeting during the business calendar. The agreement is attached to the staff report as an exhibit, and then changes to the salary schedule are also included with that, because the salary schedule would also need to be updated. Happy to answer any questions or comments if the council has any.
Any questions from council? Oh. Right, any public comment on this matter?
We received one written comment from Tammy Wong. I see no hands raised at this time.
If there's,
And I'll close public comment at this time and return to council for further discussion, desired action.
yeah, if there's no further discussion, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021. Next in order, a resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon approving an employment agreement with Jason B. Holley for employment as city manager.
I'll second.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamas,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Congratulations and yes.
Councilmember Joseph,
Yes.
and Mayor Garcia.
Yes,
Thank you, Mayor and Council. It's an honor to serve you and to serve the community, and I'm excited for the future. Thank you very much.
Jason, there's another resolution on the salary schedule. Should I move with that? Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2021. Next in order, a resolution of the City Council of the City of American Canyon approving the fiscal year 2021-22 salary schedule.
I'll second it.
Great. And
motion is second,
Okay.
roll call, please.
Councilmember Abadamas,
Yes.
Councilmember Oro,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Joseph,
Yes.
and Mayor Garcia.
Yes, thank you, council. Moving on in our agenda. Next would be management staff oral reports. Mr. Holley?
Yes, Mayor, just a couple, both Erica Smithies and Rick Greenberg have a couple of updates for us. While they're being ushered over, I'll just report back. I returned this afternoon from Portland, Oregon, representing the city at the ICMA annual conference. I had the opportunity to present information and share about American Canyon's sustainability and reliability project. I gave the same presentation to the Cal Cities conference about a week and a half ago. This was a similar presentation. The attendees, about 1,500 or so attendees from all across the nation, city managers, county administrators from all over the country, and received a lot of positive feedback about the leadership that the community and that the council particularly displayed in moving forward with our sustainability project, despite all of the challenges we were facing with the pandemic. It was very well received, and it was an honor to present that on a national stage for American Canyon. So I had a good time doing that, and back here now in action. And Erica and Rick are here to give their updates, so thank you.
I'd like to first start off, thank you, Mayor and fellow council members. I'd like to first provide a plug for the city's new solid waste ordinance, SC 1383, which is a state mandate for reduction in compost and organic recovery. We have community outreach webinars scheduled for Tuesday, October 12th at 6 p.m. and Monday, October 1st at 6 p.m. Login info is on the city's community calendar on the website, and the info will be mailed out through our water bills, or were mailed out with our water bills and included in our city manager's updates, and Recology included in their bills. So we hope to see many faces. We've also had the chamber, that Valerie has been very helpful with spreading the word along with Recology to make sure that businesses and community members and the residents are up to speed when the ordinance is passed and hopefully passed in next month and active in the beginning of 2022. Then I'll start off with the Napa County-wide Walk and Roll to School Day, which is tomorrow, October 6th. During morning travels, you're going to see a lot of city faces around all the schools. This is sponsored by the Napa County Bicycle Coalition and Napa County Office of Education. We reached out to them to help partner with all the American Canyon and school district schools and the Calvary Baptist, so all of them are participating. This is a citywide collaboration with AmCan, American Canyon participation, staff from Public Works, Maintenance Utilities, Parks and Recreation, Finance, City Manager's Office, and Public Safety participate in planning and organizing. And we hope to see a lot of young faces out there tomorrow walking and rolling to school. And if they're driving to school or being dropped off, we recommend parents drop them off a few blocks from school, let them walk into school so they feel like they're part of the group. I'll let the police chief take it from here as far as safety tips and what they're doing at the surrounding campuses.
All right, thank you. All right.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So just some safety tips from the police department during tomorrow's event. If riding a bicycle or scooter, please make sure that kids are wearing helmets. If walking, please use the crosswalks and look both ways before crossing the street. And to all the parents out there, please hold the younger children's hands when crossing the street. As we all know, sometimes they can get a little rambunctious and scurry with us. And then to the drivers out there, be patient and don't drive through a crosswalk with pedestrians in it. Look for bicyclists and scooters out on the sidewalks and roadways. And at 7:20 a.m. tomorrow, American Canyon Police Department, anybody that wants to meet there that has children that go to Canyon Oaks Elementary, I'll be doing a walking school bus tomorrow. So just meet in the parking lot tomorrow at 7:20 a.m. and I'll be walking the group of children and parents from the police department to Canyon Oaks Elementary. And lastly, I just want to throw it out there that in May, we will also be participating in the countywide Bike to School event. And other than that, I hope everybody has a great time, enjoys the event, and be safe. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief Greenberg. Thank you. It's going to be a bit of a family day in the morning tomorrow, so that's going to be very good. Thank you. Moving on now to council comments, committee reports. We'll take up future agenda after this. Councilmember Albadamos, anything to report?
Sure. It feels like it's been such a busy week and it's still Tuesday. Yesterday, the LAFCO board met. We had to continue like more than half of our agenda because we got a presentation on housing and affordable housing in Napa County from Napa County and the city of Napa, which took about an hour and 20 minutes out of a 2-hour meeting. So, but it was good information that we got. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is all of us were present at the Highway 29 discussion through NVTA. And I feel like we've given them a hard time every time they've presented to us about roundabouts or whatever it was. And we've told them that they don't listen. And actually this last presentation, I feel like they did listen. They incorporated things that, pertain to our BDSP. And I felt like they took a lot of our comments into consideration and it was thoughtful and it was well done. So thank you. And thank you, Erica, for being there. And thank you, Jason, for being there as well and for your comments.
Councilmember Morrow?
Yeah, I have a full report that I didn't submit, so we'll get it on the next round.
We'll see it next time.
Yeah, it'll incorporate some key learnings from the League of California Cities event that happened in Sacramento. So I was able to attend a lot of that, and I think there's some good stuff in there related to housing and conducting and working as a council together. So looking forward to submitting that, and it'll be in the next week's report.
Councilmember Washington.
And my excuse is a little bit differently. I submitted it, but submitted it late. I have nothing else to add to it, but yeah, looking forward to having it submitted for the next council meeting.
Okay, great. Vice Mayor Joseph, anything more to add to yours?
No, I was able to submit it on time, so it's all there for anyone to read.
You know, like myself, I got it on time too with 15 minutes to spare. That's how on time I am. No, I think I would just add the League of California Cities conference had some very, very good topics this time. Really appreciate sitting on the panel discussion with Mr. Holley there on sustainability in a challenging time. So you think back on it, you know, we have done some rather remarkable creative things in American Canyon. Given you have a pandemic, economic impact of that, a drought, and you know, we're just doing a great job with that. I thank all my colleagues for that and all the staff who helped make the city the great place it is.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, if you're done with your report, I did skip something. If you're not done, then continue, but please don't forget me.
I will not forget you. I think the thing that I said on a couple sessions there on the drought, water access, and it's looking pretty severe, to be quite frank. It's they think there's probably going to be a La Nina event. La Nina is a drier winter, followed by already. So somebody who had reflected on what the Australian continent was 12 years of drought. So hopefully we're not going to match that. But I know we're doing some very incredible job on water conservation. Probably by next meeting, we can have a report on how much the recycled water program. We're participants in that. I'm sure a lot of people are, but it has done a lot to save potable water in American Canyon. And it's very cheerful guys come out with that big truck and they fill up tanks, and we're my wife's extensive succulent garden is thriving, so that's good news. Councilmember Abel-Downs.
So sorry about that. Yeah, it's super impressive how many people are using the recycled water now. But yeah, California League of Cities. So I was thinking that I reported on it last week, but that was a fire board meeting, not a council meeting. As you guys know, I was appointed second vice president of the North Bay Division, which is super exciting.
Yes.
I already sit on the Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, and I'm so excited to contribute more to the league. I went to all of the legal talks at the league conference, so I was able to. It was able to serve a dual purpose for me. I was able to get continuing legal education credits, as well as learn more from the city perspective. So it was a great time. And I used to complain to Nancy that I felt like the sessions weren't substantive enough, and that's how she put me in a subcommittee, a policy committee. And now I've been appointed as second vice president. So I guess if you ask more, you'll get more.
Well, congratulations on your appointment, Sue. I mean,
Thank you.
we were there to celebrate the moment with you, and it was just, well, I think, you know, it's your professional background, your knowledge base, and your participation. You just expands your scope of understanding and knowledge what city space, and that's why I really recommend always the league conference to all elected officials. It's equivalent to our professional education requirement. So thank you for that.
I agree. Thank you.
Any future agenda items?
Not necessarily a future agenda item, but we did get a comment about landscaping along Wetlands Edge, and I'm hoping staff can just address that. I don't think it's a council item as much as a service request.
Yeah, I'll do my walk over that way. There's some some of the plantings need some attention. Yes, they do.
Take a look at it. Thank you.
If that's not that, then we will, we're going to do this. We're going to adjourn from this meeting and we're going to open up the special meeting. So just stay tuned on this channel.
We are. So we're going to adjourn, but everyone can just stay right on this channel. We're not going anywhere. So
Not going
procedurally,
anywhere.
we're going to adjourn, but everyone else hang tight. Don't go anywhere.
City clerk
And
needs a
it
few
was-
minutes to get us transferred over.
Yeah, it's going to be a few minutes, so I'm just going to put up the momentarily sign and we'll be back as soon as possible.
Very good. Stay tuned, folks.
Thank you.
I think we have a council, all members are here.
Just-
Turn on your video, then we can that.
think I have everybody over.
Okay, do we have all commissioners present?
Yes.
I know that is yes. Okay, good. We had not had this format in quite a while, so I think we're catching the technology on. We have again the preamble for how public can participate in the meeting.
Sure. Did you want to call to order and do all that stuff first? Okay. But I have it if we need to read it again.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful because it's a separate meeting.
Okay.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. Special Joint City Council Planning Commission meeting for October 5th, 2021. We have the flag, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh my goodness. Yep, I do.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do council roll call, then planning commission roll call.
Great. Sorry. Councilmember Abadamos.
Here.
Councilmember Oro.
Here.
Councilmember Washington.
Here.
Vice Mayor Joseph.
Here.
And Mayor Garcia.
Here.
And planning commissioners, I have Commissioner Altman,
Present.
Commissioner Goff,
Here.
Commissioner Wong,
Here.
Vice Chair Malari,
Here.
and Chair Navarro.
Here.
Thank you. The preamble, please.
Thank you for joining us for the City of American Canyon City Council meeting. This meeting is being held entirely virtually in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to the Zoom platform, the meeting is broadcast on cable TV, channel 28 on YouTube, and streamed live on the city's website. Public participation during this meeting is encouraged, and instructions for using the Zoom feature, Raise Your Hand, are included in the public comment non-agenda items section of the meeting agenda. The agenda for this and all upcoming meetings is available on the meetings and agendas page of the city's website at www.cityofamericancanyon.org. Also, there is our new e-comment link where members of the public can submit written comments or pre-register to speak on any agenda items. All votes at tonight's meeting will be taken by roll call. Please be patient if we experience any technical difficulties. This concludes the introductory remarks.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Moving on in the agenda, City Clerk's announcement pursuant to Government Code 54952.3. It is as stated in the agenda. Have we received any public comment on items not on the agenda?
We have not received written public comments, and there are no hands raised at this time.
Very good, then I'll close public comment at this time. Moving on to our business calendar. Item number 1, workshop, Hampton Inn and Hotel at 3443 Broadway.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We got the unique format tonight, sitting jointly with the City Council and Planning Commission. We actually have the 2 items tonight that are really related to planning matters, and we felt that it would be important to have these 2 bodies sit and really communicate and coordinate some of their thoughts on this particular application that's before us, and then more broadly, getting an update on the general plan. So without any further ado, I'll turn over to Brent Cooper, who will take away this item.
All right, well, thank you, City Council and Planning Commission. It's great to have all of you here to talk about a couple of important policy issues. Of course, the first one tonight is the Hampton Inn zone change. And I know that we have the applicant is probably here and looking forward to participating in the discussion. But just as
Who is the applicant for that? I'm sorry, Brent.
We have Al Shagahi.
I do have an Al. I'm gonna bring him over.
Also, let's see.
I do not have Rick Hess.
Just looking through.
Oh, I do. Is it Mackenzie Hess? I bet it's Mackenzie Hess.
Let's see. So those are the ones that I'm aware. I think Opino Patel.
Hello.
So we have a variety of people that are associated with the applicant that would likely want to speak today. But I do have a brief presentation to share with you. And I'll give a little bit of a background to the project. So hopefully you're able to see my share screen. All right, good.
Looks good.
Just a quick overview. This proposed zone change would amend the local serving mixed-use zoning district to allow hotels, which the zoning code refers to as a lodging use. The last time the council discussed this issue was now way back in December of last year. And at that time, there were a number of issues that staff raised, and then through the workshop format, we had some issues that the council asked staff and the applicant to look forward to resolving, which I will have an update for you tonight. Just as a reminder, in yellow here is the proposed location for the Hampton Inn Hotel. It's just south of Donaldson Way on the west side of Broadway, immediately north of the Canyon Plaza Shopping Center. Some of the existing site conditions, it's what we would say this project is, site is ripe for redevelopment. There are a number of older buildings. It was built long before the city's incorporation when American Canyon was just a rural community. There's a home on there that's been converted to commercial use, and some other sort of warehouse type buildings that are up close to the setback. It doesn't have the landscape and a variety of other improvements that one would see in development today. Here's a view of the site from Broadway. You can see it has a cool windmill on the property and some sort of a collection of buildings, let's say. We had talked about this location being in the local serving mixed use. It's primarily a retail and services zoning district. This mid-block location with access only on Highway 29 makes it a poor candidate for retail or commercial uses mostly, because it's difficult to get to if you're looking to do some retail shopping. You kind of have to do some effort to get there, navigate U-turns and the like. So it's just not a great retail site. Housing is allowable on this site, and is a potential use. But overall, there have been very few proposals of development over the years for this site. I'd mentioned this is one of a variety of local serving mixed-use sites. The zone change, while we're focusing on the Hampton Inn site, if we're to change the zoning in the district, it would affect other parcels also zoned local serving mixed-use. So I have them shown here on the map in different colors. There's basically 4 sites that are shown here. They are mostly, like site 4 is very narrow. There was an earthquake fault through that. That would be a difficult one to accommodate a hotel. Site 3 there is committed already to a number of uses. Site 2 there at Crawford is vacant. It's been, we were just talking earlier this week and last week with the potential residential development. It seems like that's been a lot of what's been attracted to that site. So I don't expect it to go to hotel. It seems like there's a lot of emphasis on housing there. So really, if we're talking about hotels and the local serving mixed use, while it's hard to predict what might happen in the future, it would seem that this is the site in the district that would accommodate a hotel if it were approved. Kind of mentioned the intent for the local serving is intended to provide services to support existing and future retail local needs. I mentioned retail, office, hotel, or other, and residential is approved. Hotel is not allowed now, but it's arguable that hotel customers, people staying there, would become customers for nearby retail. And so if you have more customers, then you have a better opportunity to attract retail and retain them. And so those are services that our local residents would enjoy too. So there is a synergy there that kind of lends itself. And so it's arguable that lodging, while not allowed today, could be accommodated and still meet the intent of the local serving mixed use zoning ordinance. If we look at the architecture, the Broadway district plan calls for architecture to be a modern farmhouse or modern industrial. What we've been encouraging applicants to do is to have a transition of architectural styles as you travel down the highway. We're not looking for uniformity, but we're looking for sort of a natural progression within a comfortable feel that outreach has shown is what people are looking for. And so the Canyon Plaza right next door is a very nicely designed modern farmhouse style development. And so we encourage the applicant to transform the initial proposal for a very modern building style into one that harmonizes with the shopping center next door. And that's what is reflected down below. And some of the ways that the applicant's architect has done that is with recesses to the windows, the colors and materials. There is a lower elevation porte cochere near the front that helps provide some scale. There's a deeper setback to the hotel than, say, the building just to the south. So the perspective, if you look further away, tends to minimize the height differences. And they've added a pitch to the roof. So there's quite a few modifications, as you can see, to have it fit in with the architectural style next door. And so I think certainly from the staff perspective, we're very pleased with the challenge that the architect was faced. One of the issues that the City Council raised, and this is consistent with the policies in the Broadway District Plan, is interconnectivity between sites throughout the Broadway District. And so being a mid-block, it would be, the specific plan would suggest, and this was raised by the council, to provide better connections between this parcel and the adjacent both north and south. The Broadway plan and the council was encouraging vehicular interconnection, and we've talked extensively with the applicant about that, certainly to the south. And I have some photographs to illustrate that. Right now, there is only one entrance proposed to the project from Broadway, and there's some challenges with that from the user, the person that might stay there, but also from fire access and being able to get, because it's a very narrow and deep site, getting access into the site for emergency services. And so I'll take kind of each one, you can kind of get a sense of what it's like. So if you were to leave the site from the entrance, you would have to, and you wanted to go to the wineries up north, you'd have to turn right and head south before you go north. And this would be a view of the highway. You'd have to sort of weave through these two lanes, kind of get in the center lane in order to get a U-turn here at Crawford Way. And as you can see, it's an uncontrolled intersection. If you're always new to town, quite understandable if you might miss it. The other option would be if you were to turn right on Crawford, then you could wind your way down James Road and back onto Donaldson Way. But it's sort of counterintuitive to go north, you go south. And then you're faced with an intersection like this. One of the other connections that was designed in the initial Canyon Plaza, talking to Rick Heck years ago, so I'm holding him to it, is the buildings were intentionally separated to provide a connection. So Certainly a lot of credit to Mr. Hess and his forward thinking. He was way ahead of his time, certainly in the context of the Broadway plan. This was designed, I think, in the 90s, so quite a long time ago. But there are some mature trees in the path. The applicant has agreed to provide a pedestrian access to interconnect the hotel to the Canyon Plaza along through this opening here. There's some grade change and there's drainage swale in between, so there's a bit of topography to address. I think the larger issue, though, to accommodate vehicles was, as explained by the applicant, is it's much more expensive to build a bridge that can accommodate vehicles than pedestrians. And then with the trees growing and such, Mr. Hess said he's reluctant to see those be removed and really didn't feel that the close proximity of the hotel to the retail stores warranted people driving. The applicant also would say that they were concerned that people, if they were to drive their vehicles through here over to the hotel site, might not be courteous in the way they drove through the parking lot. So I'm sure they'll have more to say when they get their chance, but that's in a summary, kind of their arguments against having vehicular connection, but they agreed to have pedestrian access between here and the hotel. The other opportunity for access has to do with connecting to Donaldson Way. And there conveniently is a vacant parcel that lines up with the western portion of the rear of the hotel site. And so much like for anyone that's been to City Hall is placed very similar. It's, mid-block in a sense. There's a parcel in between Napa Junction Road and City Hall. Soon after the City Hall was occupied, the city purchased that property next door and put in a drive-through. And it's been really convenient to get access without having to go on a Highway 29. And this is very similar in the way it's positioned and the utility of it, should it were it to be made available. So if you were to leave the parking lot of the hotel, head on Donaldson Way, you get right to the Donaldson Way intersection, and then you could head on north and not have to worry about U-turning and heading south. One of the other issues, move on to, that came out of the Broadway plan is a requirement to underground overhead utilities. We certainly talked about that last night during the Highway 29 multimodal plan with the NBTA. There's a lot of desire to have the overhead utilities placed underground. We would think there's only one pole here, and that wouldn't be, a bit of a problem, but apparently it is connected to other poles on the opposite side of the highway. Undergrounding overhead utilities can be somewhat complicated in the way they're supported and interconnected. And Mr. Shikahi probably has something to say about some of the technical complications of undergrounding this overhead utility. In lieu of undergrounding it, the applicants proposed an in lieu fee that might help offset the cost to underground other overhead utilities that are less technically complex. And so we could perhaps talk about that more of that later. One of the other issues that the council raised would be if there is another hotel in American Canyon, what are the existing and proposed, approved, and so on hotels, just to kind of get a bigger picture. I do have a graphic here, so you can see my cursor, but this is the proposed Hampton Inn site here, as we talked about. To the south, a potential site. This is the one on Crawford that is also local serving mixed use. As I mentioned, this has been proposed for housing, unlikely to be a hotel, but one never knows. It isn't built yet. Of course, we have our existing hotels, the Holley and Express here at Napa Junction Center, the Fairfield Inn just to the south. I have Home to Suites in the wrong spot. I apologize for that. It's actually up just above Fairfield Inn. That's a mini warehouse, sorry. And then we have the Doubletree Inn, of course, formerly Gaia, that we're all very familiar with. And then there's a Watson Ranch Hotel over here, the Ruins and Gardens. That is a different type of hotel than the others that you'll see in American Canyon. even the Hampton Inn, it's meant to be more of a resort style. It's quite different. And so that one, we're expecting that application to come in fairly soon, but it's been long anticipated through the Watson Ranch specific plan. And then just moving north again and to kind of round us out, here's another potential hotel site. This has a business park zoning that allows hotels. This is the Marshall Honey Farm site. It's 4 acres, larger than we might get for a typical hotel. There have been some inquiries, but nothing serious. So that's, perhaps always a possibility. But I wanted to give the council kind of a sense of what's maybe in the offing here. One other one not shown on here is what we refer to as the balloon property. It's shaped like a balloon. It's just north of the Reliant Apartments. The city just recently received a pre-application for a residential project there, and has been all of the inquiries to this point. There have been no proposals for hotels there. There has been talk at some time, perhaps in the future, for the Adobe Lumber site to have a hotel. I'm talking to the owner's representative recently. Their current thinking is no hotel in that location. So I think what we've kind of captured here would be, we'll say, the universe of possible hotel sites. Although I do have to say that it seems remote for the Marshall Honey Farm site and particularly down here at the Crawford site. Okay, I want to move on to the marketing study. This was a topic one of your July meetings for the council. There was a marketing study. This was done with a concern that adding the Hampton Inn might oversaturate hotels and then cause a problem for the existing and then the newly approved Home to Suites project. And so this is a very extensive report, and it's suggesting that there is room for about 275 mid-scale and upscale hotel rooms by 2025. Hotels, I guess, take a long time, as we've noticed, for them to be approved and built. So I guess maybe 2025 is not that far away. And then there'll be a new market. Nevertheless, the project would generate significant employment and transient occupancy tax, much like all the other hotels we have in town. The city did ask as a favor from Visit Napa Valley to take a look at the marketing study and provide their perspective. A lot of the hotels that were listed in the marketing study, in the opinion of Visit Napa Valley, are maybe a little further out than 2025. And so that's maybe not such much competition for limited hotel space. Visit Napa Valley also has a perspective because they're a little closer to the issue, I think, here in Napa County. And they talk about the resilience of American Canyon's hotels. It appeals to a broader audience than hotels north of American Canyon. We do get a lot of essential workers. We have people who come here per diem, travel. American Canyon is also a place where people would not just go to wine tasting, but they might go to Discovery in Napa, or rather in Vallejo, might go to Infineon Raceway, we have the golf courses. So there's really a broader audience, I think, in American Canyon. And with its better value pricing, then it's more resilient to economic downturns and upturns and such. So they had a very bullish viewpoint on hotel rooms in American Canyon. There was another concern, will this in fact be a Hampton Inn hotel? I'm sure the applicant could speak more completely about this issue, but they did respond to the issue to staff, and that they have a franchise agreement, which I'm sure none of us ourselves have tried to get a franchise agreement, but I think the implication there is it's not easy to get a franchise agreement. I think it's probably a lot of work and expense. The hotel itself, too, is designed by Hampton Inn architects. So there's a sort of a financial commitment to going forward with this being a Hampton Inn hotel. I'm sure there's vetting by Hilton. This is a Hilton brand. I'm sure Hilton also does a lot of vetting for the site. So I'm sure the applicant can talk more about that. The environmental review, this was the applicant funded the preparation of an environmental review. It was done by the same consultant that prepared the Broadway District Program Environmental Impact Report. They did a very extensive review both of the Hampton Inn and changing the zoning on the other zoning sites. And they've concluded that this would qualify for an addendum to the Broadway District Program ER. By that, it means there's no need for new mitigation measures. The mitigation measures in the Broadway Plan EIR would suffice for this proposed use. Just kind of summing it up. Of course, we have our City Council Planning Commission workshop tonight. If there are any new issues, we'll be sure to analyze them, conduct some further outreach on, if nothing else, the Planning Commission subsequent meeting. There will be a recommendation from the Planning Commission, and then following that, we would have a City Council first and second readings. And at the second reading, we would incorporate the conditional use permit for the hotel, much the same way that we organized the Oat Hill, which had a general plan and zone change, and then the design permits. Those were all taken along with the second reading of the ordinance. So with that, that's my quick review. I'm glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation on that. I was had the Visit Napa Valley's economic analysis on it, and had a sense of we were doing better by talking with all the other mayors as we were during the COVID impact. But wow, it's just occupancy is very high in American Canyon. It's that per diem worker. I noticed the Fairfield Inn participates in that a lot. Parking lots seem to have a lot more cars than other hotels, even during the major shutdown. So I think they had a lot of essential workers housed there as part of the process. So I think from an economic perspective, sounds like they would be in a good position. With that, I think I think we had the first hand. Councilmember Joseph?
Yes, thank you for the report and presentation. At the beginning, there's a kind of a philosophical issue here as far as the zoning goes, that there's two options. One is to essentially change the definition of what LSMU permits, and then the other one would be to rezone the parcel to community commercial. And so in that regard, is the parcel adjacent to community commercial? If you go directly north, you're at Donaldson. What's the zoning on the other side?
The parcel is immediately adjacent are you referring to the north side of Donaldson Way or
the north side? Because you could just lump the houses there in with community commercial if that's what's on the other side.
On the north side of Donaldson Way, it's the zoning there is home improvement. And then
that was an overlay or something.
Well, it's a zoning.
Oh, okay.
And the houses that are on the south side of Donaldson Way, those are also local serving mixed use.
Yeah.
Staff hadn't proposed the option of zoning the Hampton Inn as community commercial, but I suppose that could be an option.
Yeah, I brought it up just because it is an option. I don't know which is a better option, and I'm not necessarily advocating one or the other. For me, I think, as far as if I can just hog the camera for a couple more minutes, my initial reactions, I do like the idea of an access off of Donaldson. I know that could be problematic, but I really do think for circulation, it's critical. Not as big a fan connecting the vehicle connection between Canyon Plaza and the hotel. The pedestrian access makes sense. As far as the franchise, I was advocating a development agreement. If there is a way that we could condition the project, not necessarily to be a Hampton Inn, but to convert that into, a 3-star, 4-star, whatever hotel, and say, look, this is what you have to have if it's not Hampton, it's some other 3-star, 4-star hotel, that kind of a thing. And then other than that, my other concern is no matter how fast we think it can be built, it's going to take longer than we think. And if anybody else is out there other than the Cambria Hotel in Napa, if anyone else has got an entitlement and they're designing something, they're probably going to be in second place. So part of the issue is timing and how quickly the developers can do whatever they can do. So those are my initial reactions.
Thank you. Yeah, I think putting together a hotel with a proximity to restaurants is a good plan. I think pedestrian access between the two properties would certainly be mutually beneficial. Councilmember Washington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate the presentation, Mr. Cooper. So thank you. Quick question. Is it just Hampton Inn or is it called Hampton Inn and Suites?
Councilmember Washington, I think you've got me on that one.
Well, I didn't mean to get you on.
I think you did.
I'm just curious because through my corporate travel, I've always stayed at Hampton Inn and Suites, and for the most part, they've always been well kept, and occupancy were always at a maximum. So from a hotel level, it's one of your upper end type hotels. So I was just curious if it's two separate names, or if it's all in one, or if it's a suite. It's a better hotel under Hilton. I know they are all part of the Hilton brand.
It is remarkable how much segmentation, the hotel companies have. And so I think that's a great question. I'm sure the applicant can clarify.
Okay. And I do know that they do cater to business travelers and families. So I'd like to hear what the developer has to say.
Any other, anybody else want to weigh in on it? Planning commissioners? If not, are we ready to hear from the developer? Oh, there's Mr. Goff. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mary.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm taking Mr. Goff right now, so you wait a minute. We have two other council commissioner reports.
The rezoning that Council Member Joseph talked about, I think is an interesting option if there is a real concern about possible hotels coming in on those other 3 sites, even though Director Cooper talked about it's highly unlikely. My concern is that very concern is in the future, we're opening it up to some additional hotels there. And then what are our options around that when those projects come in? But for this specific site, I think the access off of Donaldson is key for that site, for the traffic nature that's going to happen. If there's not an access off of Donaldson, those cars are going to come right back in. They're going to take a right. And while you talked about crossing 2 lanes and doing a U-turn, they're not going to do that. They're going to drive right through Mr. Hess's development because he's got a turning lane into there. All those cars are going to shuffle through that shopping center and find the back road. And that's got to be a big concern for traffic in there. And I'm sure Mr. Hess is concerned about that in his development that he has. I think the pedestrian bypass is an excellent idea. They don't need to drive. They can walk over and get food, get whatever services are offered there. But my big concern is that access to Donaldson. I think without that, we're going to run into some significant traffic issues and flow of traffic from that proposed site. That's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Oro?
Yeah, I'll make this quick. I agree too on just vehicle access to Donaldson using the property that's there. It has to happen. I'm a local. I live here. I'm on the Hess property a lot. You can find me at Taqueria in his property about once a week. And I live on the other side of the highway on the east side of town. I don't like doing the U-turn on Crawford Way. I do it sometimes, and every time I do it, I'm daring myself to be dangerous today because it's pretty rough to do that U-turn. It's just uncomfortable. So what do? I go down to the post office, do a big U-turn onto James Road, and then come back up Donaldson and cross the highway. For me, I just can't be supportive of any project that doesn't have some sort of access northbound, because you know your guests will be going northbound at some point during their stay. I'm in favor of keeping that Paseo, that little pedestrian walkway between Canyon Plaza and this proposed hotel site. I still wonder, and I'd like to see the actual numbers of what that undergrounding of the utility would take. One of the big things we did for this Broadway district specific plan was to beautify the highway and underground those utilities. If we can't do that at one of the very first sites that we are looking at, what's ahead for us, right? This is almost one of those times where you get into an affordable housing conundrum. Rather than building affordable housing, we're going to pay an in lieu fee. I don't want to be down here, 10, 15 years from now with utilities crossing the highway just because everybody paid a fee and we can't bury them underground. So those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out for those who did not have the opportunity to attend MVT's presentation last night on 29 improvements, there is a traffic circle in the proposal at that intersection with Broadway 29 and Donaldson Way, and that could have an impact as well. But I think, if you look at the map of the layout of the property, what they're going to construct on it, there's only one entrance in and out. And from a traffic, public safety perspective, that's problematic. I think traffic circulation, et cetera, pedestrian. So that is crucial that there's the access on Donaldson Way. And I think I have a hand here. See Al, have I got that right?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I still think you have councilor and commission comments. I think Al is the applicant.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I just happened to see Mr. Altman down here.
So what? Yeah.
I'm going to go on to let's do the commissioner comments first, and I'll get into applicant. Mr. Altman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to agree with most of the prior comments. I think the pedestrian access is wonderful. I think the hotel is a very positive idea for a site that is in great need of some redevelopment. I also, though, am a firm believer that for safety reasons, as you were just mentioning, Mr. Mayor, and that's the highest priority for me, we need that connection to Donaldson for traffic. It's just, for me, that's an absolute must. I'll then touch on what Councilmember Oro brought up, which is another key thing for me, and to a certain extent, I wish we would have flip-flopped the meetings that the Planning Commission has had, this joint meeting prior to our Planning Commission meeting of last week, because last week we dealt with PG&E and their project in the industrial zone, where the idea and concept of undergrounding overhead wires came up, and I was bold enough to ask the question of staff as to had they discussed with PG&E as part of that project, having PG&E help us and contribute something towards undergrounding of wires elsewhere in the city, because there obviously were none at that site. I will agree with Councilmember Oro completely here. Undergrounding wires is of critical importance. And while this one may be particularly expensive, and while I might be able to accept not doing this one, I don't want a fee. I want wires undergrounded. And so I would look at it in that regard, that if they're not going to do here, don't pay us a fee. Tell us what other wires you're going to go and you're going to have put underground, for our community. So those are my comments at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't remember in what order. Ms. Wong?
Thank
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. I agree with the council members and commissioners who spoke before me. I agree that we do need to have access on Donaldson for a business of this type for safety reasons. And I also want to point out, having attended the NDTA meeting yesterday and having had the discussion with PG&E at the last Planning Commission meeting, I think we also need to keep bicycle usage at our forefront. That's sort of key to our Broadway district specific plan of wanting to make it more of a friendly, engaging community. So when we talk about having access between Canyon Plaza and the hotel, a pedestrian connection is great, but I'd also like to make sure it's wide enough to accommodate bicyclists who may choose to have a bicycle to go shopping. And it may be that Hampton Suites will see the benefit of this and offer some type of loaner program of bicyclists to the people who may stay with them. This brought to mind, Mr. Cooper spoke about essential workers and per diem travelers being a user of American Canyon hotels. And with the new PG&E service center, I can see that is yet another source of per diem travelers who may choose to stay at Hampton and access the bicycle parking that we pushed for at our last Planning Commission meeting. So let's keep bicycles in mind as we move forward with our Broadway district specific plan discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Abadamos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go ahead and say I agree with what everyone else said before me as well. But I'm going to, Commissioner Altman beat me to it, but I'm going to heavily reemphasize the need for undergrounding, right? We dealt with the PSPS. It's imminent. It can happen anytime during any fire season. And I don't think that we should miss any opportunities to underground. I wasn't at the last Planning Commission meeting. I'm not sure how PG&E responded to the ask for help with undergrounding. If it's not too late, I think it's something that's worth revisiting. The reason why we need to underground is because of them. Like the 2017 fires, I was newly elected and I was freaking out just like everyone else. And I couldn't sleep at night because I was thinking, should I pack my bags? But every time I'd go pack, I'd start panicking and just stay away. So I think it's very important that we do the best that we can to not miss that opportunity. I hate the excuse that it's too hard or it's too expensive. Building a hotel is hard and expensive, but there's money in it, so we make it happen. There's something to be said for undergrounding utilities to prevent people's homes from burning down. So I just want to make sure that that point is heavily driven. It's something that's very near and dear to all of us. And I think it's very important that we do the best that we can to try to underground as much as we can. I see Rick raised his hand in response to my comment, so I hope I didn't make you that angry. Another thing I wanted to mention is Mr. Cooper showed us several different potential hotel sites, but the one thing that's unique about this one is the fact that there could be a walkway to the plaza, right? We don't have that really in American Canyon, and having people be able to walk to restaurants or to the barber shop or Seams Where Pigs Fly, I think that's a really cool place that we have here in American Canyon. And different kinds of shopping and stuff. There's a massage place in that plaza. You guys are all aware. That's something that's unique to this location, and I don't think that we should miss that opportunity either. However, the secondary access is super important, right? We don't want to add to our traffic. We're trying to figure out ways to make our traffic lighter. And what Commissioner Goff said about people going into the plaza just to avoid going all the way around to go north, the reality of it is even the people that are staying as essential workers are more likely going north or to the Bay Area than actually working here in American Canyon. So we need to be cognizant of that as well. So we have a unique opportunity. I love the pedestrian access, but we also need to make sure our community is safe and vibrant. And those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Arl, you got your hand up, or?
I meant to take it down, sorry.
All right, it's okay. All right, council members, commissioners, are we ready to hear from applicants? I'm seeing a lot of nods, okay. I think the first one I saw was Al.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Planning Commissioner. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Al Shagagi from AMS Associates, 801 Ignacio Valley Road, Suite 220, Walnut Creek, California. I have here with me our team members, Mr. Patel, which is a developer of the hotel. I have Mr. Jeff McAdam, who's our architects on this project. But I will try to respond to some of those comments which Mr. Cooper brought up. Some of them I may need to defer to Mr. Patel about that. We start this project almost a year ago. As Brent told you guys, we submit the kind of modern architecture, which he showed you guys. We've been working with city very closely, and we've been listening to their guidance and their direction. And the elevations you see is reflection of our discussion with the staff. The site plan we had is we had this land, as you can see, this is a land that Mr. Patel was trying to purchase, and we looked at this site plan and looked at the access to this site. We also looked at how we can get this site designed to work for a hotel, also works for the fire access, fire departments, and the other issues, the trucks for picking up the trash, all that stuff. We looked at it. We ran the truck templates through the site, and the trucks easily can go around the hotel and serve the hotel if it's needed. We also been discussing with Mr. Hess for almost a year or two about the access, how we can connect these two properties together. We looked at it, and the best things was to creating a bridge to connecting this site to the shopping center. This would give the guests opportunity to, instead of going back all the way back to Broadway, they can easily access to the shopping center, and they can go to the restaurant or whatever they need there. We also discussed the vehicle access, as Mr. Cooper mentioned. I will defer that to Mr. Hess to respond to that, but we had the difficulties there. There is a storm drainage ditch at the north of that shopping center with the row of the trees, and also the mature trees in shopping center, which would affect really not just a few trees, would affect his shopping center. Again, I'm going to defer that to Mr. Hess. He can discuss about that. We also looked at the sidewalk. If you looked at the site plan, I mean, I don't know, Brent, we can see that site plan or not, but we provided the almost 17-foot sidewalk in the front of the site, which connects the existing sidewalk north of us at the Broadway. We also extended our sidewalk to southerly property, which is a Mr. Hess's property. There is a walkway that goes to that center. So if you look at that site plan, which we had, we provided that additional access. So if the guest decides to not use that pedestrian bridge, they could always come to the front and use the walkway. Also, if they want to go north, there is an existing sidewalk, which is currently there, but we provided the very nice sidewalk, which could be used with pedestrian, even the bikers could use that wide sidewalk. We also provided some planters in the front, which kind of gives you kind of the idea what the future development maybe could be. They could be maybe using the same design which were provided here. As far as the access is concerned, we, as a part of the project originally, city recommended that we install the masonry wall at the north property line, also on the west property line, which we kind of liked, to be honest, because this kind of gives the hotel security to the guests. It will be only accesses in the front, and easily can be monitored for safety of the guests to come into the hotel. On later date, the city council brought the issue of the Donaldson Connection, which we've been working on that for some times. And we had even draw some design on that. To look at how that thing works. And also I've been talking to Mr. Patel, which he was in communication with the owner of that property, which I will defer that again to Mr. Patel so he can explain that to you. As far as the hotel is concerned, I know again, Mr. Patel can tell you, they have a franchisee agreement for 20 years to keep with Hilton, to keep the hotel as a Hampton Inn. And then they also have an extension of beyond the 20 years. We've been working on this project. We've been trying to accomplish everything is possible to make a really great project, which the City of American Canyon can be proud of. We are providing several access to the front of the hotel from the sidewalks which we are designing. Also, we are providing the very lavish landscaping through the site. Now, as far as the overhead line is concerned, currently there is an overhead line. It goes to the pole, which is located at the south east corner of the property. And this pole only come in to serve the existing buildings, which currently is in the site. We looked at it, we talked to the PG&E, we also spoke to some of the consultant, which they do deal with PG&E. And we've been told that undergrounding this is very problematic is not just going back, as Mr. Cooper said, is not just going and taking the 2 poles down and undergrounding. It requires several poles in other site to be undergrounded. Also, this will naturally require the easement from the adjacent properties and of course getting a permit from Caltrans, which is a very, very problematic. But again, we are looking at that to see if we can come with some better solution on that. Hopefully we will be talking more on this with the city staff about this. I think those are the items I think Mr. Washington brought idea of the suite versus the Hampton Inn. Again, I'm going to defer that to Mr. Patel on that. I think those are the big bulk of the issues we have, which is again, like I said, the Donaldson way, we are tried very hard. And I know Mr. Patel has been trying hard to discuss that issue with the adjacent property again. As far as the other issues is concerned, I think we responded to most of the comments which city had. And I'm hoping we can resolve those other issues soon. So if you guys do not have any other question from me, I'd like to ask Mr. Patel if he can answer those questions about what's the situation with Donaldson access is, also as far as the agreement of the hotel, also the same things about the suite versus a Hampton Inn. So Mr. Patel.
Yeah, Mr. Patel, go ahead.
Thank you guys for taking the chance and listening to all our concerns. Regarding to Hampton Inn, we have a franchise agreement already in place for 20 years, and they will do another additional extensions for another 15. We are currently franchisees already in number of Hilton products in Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi. So in going back to Mr. Washington's question about Hampton Inn and Suites, it all depends on the layout of the actual room. So it would basically go back to our architect to see how we could lay out suites in the hotel. We would need to have about 10%. We also have Hampton Inn and Suites right now currently in Lafayette, Louisiana. that is a Hampton Inn and Suites. I think it's 10 or 15% of the overall rooms that has to be suites. So we will address that with our architect to make sure that how we could accommodate the suites if need be. And going back to Donaldson Connection, we had worked with Sean, the realtor that's representing us and also representing the other lot. They have intent to develop. They do not currently want to sell. They want to do some duplexes or residential development there. If you guys have any questions, I would love to answer it.
Anybody else from the applicant side want to speak at this time?
Mr. Mayor, there's
Kinsey Hess.
there's a Vipul Patel. I'm not sure if that's a member of the applicant's crew, but they've had their hand up. So I'm wondering if they need to be moved over to the panelist side.
We're actually having some technical difficulties moving him over. I'm in communication with Mr. Cooper. We're trying to see, it appears that he has an outdated version of Zoom, and that might be causing the error.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I can't move him over.
Councilmember Albanese, thanks for catching that.
Absolutely.
I have a hand up for Mackenzie Hess.
Mackenzie, you're muted.
I think that's Rick.
I think it's Rick too. Rick, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Good evening, everybody.
Mr. Hess. How are you?
Hi. I want to just address a couple of things. I completely agree with Mr. Altman and Miriam and the rest of you that have talked about undergrounding. I think it is important with the Highway 29 Broadway plan. What I think is unique about this situation is because the wires are coming across Highway 29. And I think you all have experience working with Caltrans, and it's not even as much of a cost factor. It's trying to get Caltrans to approve of some type of easement or right-of-way going across the highway and then actually undergrounding it. We're also, as you guys know, we have the application in right up the street for the affordable housing project, and all of those wires run along the frontage of the property, which is typical of all of the utilities along Highway 29. Rarely do you find where the utilities cross over the highway. So I just think it's worth a second look and consideration. In this case, is it really practical to try to get this one line under the highway at this point? And I agree with Mr. Oro that we hate to come out of the gate and not underground something, but this, I think, is a unique situation. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is in the meeting last night with NVTA, they were talking about the roundabouts, and it appeared to me that the roundabouts seem to be the preferred direction that the NVTA is going for safety, for slowing traffic down, and all of those things. And if I understood it right, they're talking about a roundabout at Crawford as well as Donaldson Way. Right now, as you know, my office there at Canyon Plaza, and I come out on almost a daily basis. And unless it's, at those commute hours, I make that U-turn at Crawford, on a, if not daily, certainly a regular basis. And I don't have any problem. If it's during commute hours, I do take Crawford down and hit James and come back to Donaldson Way to the stoplight. But it's only during those commute hours that making that U-turn is a problem. And if we do end up going with the roundabout, I think that solves the issue of that access. with most properties along Highway 29, they're all going to be right in, right, well, whether you're going north or south, they're going to be right in, right out turns, just like the DoubleTree across the street, or even the Catholic Church, that street that you go in there, right in, right out. I just recently was at the car wash. I had to make a right turn out and go down and make a U-turn at Donaldson to get back to my office. So even though it's not ideal, I think we're faced with that all along Highway 29 and with those one way in, one way out. So those are, I think everybody else in agreement with the pedestrian footbridge going across. I think that's a great asset, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Councilmember Washington.
Just a quick question for Rick, Patel, or Al. You know, when building that structure, would it be possible to at least set the infrastructure for underground utilities? So in the event in the future, when it comes down to winning Caltrans's heart to get it going across, at least there's no redigging because the infrastructure is there to tap into.
If I could, that pole is very close to where the right-of-way line is going to be in the sidewalk. It's the issue is you're right there at the Caltrans 40-foot right-of-way, and any trenching you did would still require some kind of approval from Caltrans, even if you just stubbed it out, you know, to the paved area. So I don't know that trenching is going to solve much in this particular case.
Okay, I was just thinking from a cost effectiveness plan for the future.
Yeah.
Can I add to that a little bit? The only way it's going to happen is they're going to have to bore under the Caltrans right away. And I don't think so that's really cost effective at this time unless you really want to underground that. As far as the pole is concerned, the only things you're going to see is the overhead is coming from the other side to this pole, because currently the wires goes above the ground and serve this building. We're going to be undergrounding our lines from this pole all the way back to the transformer. So you're not going to see anything in a hotel site. Everything is going to be underground. So the only things you're going to see right now is just the crossing wire, all that overhead line, which currently it's right now, which serves the existing building, all will be underground.
Vice Mayor Joseph.
Yes, so I do want to follow up on that. So the picture we saw, at least to me, it looked like the line went from 29 all the way back towards Donaldson. So it sounds like that line's going to be underground, and that all that's left is the pole there by the highway and then the power lines going across the highway. Is that, just to be clear, is that what
this pole is there just to serve those houses, which currently is in this site. I do not believe this pole is going to the Donaldson. The existing overhead lines really serving all the communities, which are the other side of the Highway 29 or the other side of the Broadway. So that's what this pole is for just particularly serving these few buildings, which currently is in this site.
Because from my perspective, it seems like either A, we should figure out another source of power that's on this side of the highway or on the west side so you don't have to access it, or B, make sure that from the highway onto your property is all undergrounded, which it sounds like you will.
Yeah.
And at some point, as we heard from yesterday's NVTA workshop, it's very likely that we will have underground utilities, sidewalks, bikes, bike lanes and so forth, that's a high probability of getting approved and probably getting funded. The roundabouts will probably take more time and a little more maneuvering to secure the funding. So I'm okay if the idea is that the power lines going across the highway remain, as long as everything associated to the site itself is undergrounded. I don't want to see power lines, or I don't want the pedestrian walkway, for example, in which you're going over a ditch but under a power line. If all of that stuff's going to be undergrounded, as far as I'm concerned, that sounds like a good solution. And then, frankly, we can wait for Caltrans and the whole 29 corridor project kind of addressing some of this undergrounding and all of that, because that's going to be a big headache, and Caltrans will be obligated to do it for us at some point. So I think the overhead thing, as long as I'm understanding it correctly, I think I'm okay with it. So that would be my comment on the overhead. On the franchise, I appreciate if it's a signed 20-year agreement with a 15-year extension, that's pretty encouraging. I would still at some point like to have our city attorney weigh in on the viability of a condition that identifies it being either a Hampton Inn or simply saying the developer has to come up with a hotel of equivalent quality. And if a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star hotel represents that qualitative option, then I'm okay with that one as well. And then we're back to the Donaldson Way access, but I think everyone here wants to see, even though I appreciate the fact that it may be very difficult and we may need to offer our services, so to speak, in terms of land acquisition for public need. So those are my additional comments.
Thank you. Mr. Altman?
Thank you. I will sort of follow up council member or I guess Vice Mayor Joseph's comments at this point. And I just want to be sure I'm understanding the utility pole issue. And I appreciate Mr. Patel's comments about nothing going west off of the pole, that the pole wires will only run east once the, assuming the project gets built. But I want to be sure I'm understanding this, because I don't know why one pole on the west side of 29 would be powering the east side of 29, buildings on the east side of 29, why that wouldn't be coming from another area. And perhaps this is a question not for anybody here, but for PG&E, because it would seem as if, I understand the comments that pole is powering, and I see it which I'm looking at the picture right now, is powering the buildings currently on the site. But if it's not powering anything else on the west side of 29, it would seem that eliminating that pole should not be that big a deal, without even having to necessarily underground wires going under the highway. So I'm hoping that somebody can do some exploration into that, and we can get some additional insight in terms of what that pole is actually, its purpose and what it's doing. So that's first comment. And then second comment, again, Mr. Joseph sort of caught me on. I was going to suggest that if necessary, if the property owner for the property next to, the Donaldson Way property that is adjacent to this site, if they want to do something, if necessary, if a small piece is needed, can we explore eminent domain? Because to me, that is, having that Donaldson Way access is really a deal breaker. And I understand Mr. Patel's comments regarding security for hotel residents, and security is important, but so is safety. And not having that Donaldson Way access, I think, really is a safety issue in my mind. So those are my comments on that for now. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Please do.
This is Al Shagagi. We will be having a meeting with city staff and the PG&E and our consultant. Mr. Cooper and I, we spoke. We had a similar situation on the gas station across the city hall, which we met with our consultant and the city staff. We analyzed it, and everyone understood what the agony, what the problem is. So I think that's what we will be doing that. So everyone can understand exactly what it takes to get this thing undergrounded and what the problem with that is. So everyone can understand, and then we can report to you what our findings exactly is. So I promise you we will do that. So we will coordinate that with the city staff on that.
Thank you. That's a really good discussion on this topic this evening. Just noticing that we have another item to look into, general plan update. And we have probably, well, it's almost 8:30 now. So I think if there's anything to wrap up from this discussion, it's just timely for all of us who are participants. Time to make note of that.
Mr. Mayor, since that person, that's the attendee's hand is still up, do you want to give them an opportunity, or I guess, never mind, it's down.
Okay.
Now there's a citizen who's got his hand raised. Chris James.
Yes, well, just want to point out that we'll take public comment on this now, because we've had everybody, applicant and council and commissioners. Just wanted, issue came up earlier in the evening about time management for meetings, so I just weighing in on that. Keep her the clock. Okay, are we ready for public comment? Public comment is open. What have we received?
Okay, I have no written comments received on this item. I have Chris James, who would like to make an oral comment. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, can. Go ahead, please.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to touch on something the applicant just said. I didn't realize he was related to the Circle K project, but that was on my list to talk about. They did get an exemption about underground power lines there, and that was the first project that came to Broadway, as part of the Broadway Pacific plan. So that right out of the gate, we're getting one applicant, but two projects that could get a pass on undergrounding. And so this is, I think we need to push harder back on undergrounding these wires. Before long, everyone will get an exception, and we'll just defer to Caltrans that's going to do it potentially in the future. Who knows when that's going to get done? If we can get the funding to do it, maybe they'll back out of that. So I think we need to push harder on that. And I like it that you've kind of touched on this is the only property being served by that cable. On the west side of town is the substation, and it's like a block and a half away. So there's got to be enough power on the west side to service this location. We've got some major developments around there that are potentially going to go in. So I can't understand why that this can't be underground and tapped off somewhere else. I am a little concerned about access off Highway 29, like everyone else. We know that the adjacent property, the Hess property, has some major acceleration, deceleration lanes, and I don't see that in this plan. It looks like just a straight shot in off 29. So, access from Donaldson would be preferred, I think, like everyone else said. I also want to point out we're running out of corner lots in the city. This is adjacent to a very small corner lot. With corner lots attract big businesses. And so just keep that in mind that maybe, we're going to kind of lock up this property, and then we're going to end up with this little short thing at the end that's been underutilized. But maybe then we'll never get redeveloped as part of the Broadway plan. So that, and I know it's all about ownership and who wants to sell and money and etc. But it'd be interesting to see if something can be done to consume that whole corner lot here in a project. And I do like the pedestrian access through to the other thing, and I am concerned about the traffic circling through past the library and the post office potentially if we can't get access through Donaldson. So again, underground, we need to push harder on undergrounding. We need to hold them accountable for this. These are big multi-million-dollar projects, and they need to start stepping up. And actually, we passed this undergrounding thing as part of our Broadway plan, and we need to start honoring that commitment that we made to that. Thank you so much. You muted, Leon.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
I have no other hands raised at this time.
Okay, very good. We'll close public comment. Return to Council and Commission for further comment.
Mayor, if I could just maybe
Please.
clarify one point that was made. The first project to be approved under the Broadway District Plan was the Home to Suites Hotel. And it has an underground overhead utility condition, and they're going forward with doing their undergrounding. So we do have an example of a project that was conditioned, and they are moving forward with that. Just wanted to clarify that.
I was just wondering with the comments, is there a north-south connection that can be used coming east to west across the highway? I think there's power on both sides of the highway, something to look into.
It's something we can look into, certainly.
Yeah. Councilmember Oro.
Yeah, just want to kind of remark on a couple of comments that made, and I'll talk to Mr. James's corner lot theory there. The corner lot's already taken. It'll take a long time for something to come together to buy that whole corner with the housing there, et cetera. I actually think this hotel project that we're looking at tonight is a really good project if we can meet some of the parameters, particularly on that Donaldson Way entrance. Vice Mayor Joseph mentioned the MBTA meeting last night where we talked about improvements on the corridor. I attended that last night as well. If anybody thinks that's going to happen soon and place their bets on Caltrans underlining it in a timely manner, it's wishful thinking. I think we need to be doing this on our own. I've been here for 15 years. Anything that we've been improved has been improved because of the City of American Canyon and the development fees. What I saw last night, I had a different take than Councilmember Alvadamos. It's nice to hear them say it. But it's another plan when we presented a plan 10 years ago. When there was a plan before that, I'm sure. But there's no construction happening. So I wouldn't put my bet on any horse that thinks Caltrans is going to underground those lines for us. If it comes, then it's, like a cherry on top. But we need to be moving and on developing as much as we can on that highway as possible. Thanks.
Okay, Vice Mayor Joseph.
I just wanted to make a quick add on. We never talked about EV charging stations. So I do want to make my pitch for whatever gets proposed, that the developer include a few electric vehicle charging stations. And then secondly, just as Chris James pointed out, not worrying about whether we've approved projects with undergrounding or not. I am a little concerned that this would be the second project that the same applicant is raising the issue that it's problematic to underground power lines. I didn't realize the connection with the Circle K proposal. So I would be inclined to say, go through the effort, but I think you frankly only get so many times at saying, hey, it's going to be problematic, so let me write a check. So I'm kind of partial to, make sure we underground the power lines to the extent that we can. Because like I said,
can I respond to that?
Yeah, okay.
First of all, I was not the applicant for the gas station. I was the civil engineer for that project. So that's just to make a correction on that. Nor am I the developer on this project. I am again civil engineer, and I'm the applicant on this project. As far as the other question was about the EV station, we are already providing those. If you look at our site plan, we are providing several of them. So
I appreciate the EV charging stations. We'll go with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anything further, Al? Are we ready to summarize this evening, wrap it up? Mr. Cooper, what would you like?
Check my note taking. There seems to be broad consensus that there should be access vehicle access from Donaldson Way. The council seems comfortable with pedestrian and bicycle access in between the hotel site and Canyon Plaza. The undergrounding seems to be an unfinished topic. Maybe looking at other options, maybe understanding the connection that's there more deeply. What's it serving? What's its purpose? Are there other ways of getting electricity to the site other than apart from that location? If it isn't feasible for whatever reason, then perhaps a fee isn't the right way to go. Perhaps the applicant could work with PG&E to find other overhead utilities that they could apply for having underground elsewhere. The applicant is going to look into the potential of adding suites to the hotel so that it can be a Hampton Inn and Suites and not just a Hampton Inn.
We wanted to make sure the quality of any hotel that goes in.
And then, right, we'll work with the city attorney to find an objective published source for what might be an equivalent star grade of hotel that might find its way into a condition of approval. I think before we take something like that to the Planning Commission for a recommendation, we'll talk to the applicant and see if they're comfortable with the way in which that's worded so that we're all in agreement, then it's a lot easier that way.
Okay, panel, have we captured it? Yeah, not, okay. Mr. Holley?
Yes, Mayor, at the risk of joining on too much, I did want to bring up one other example. I'm reminded of the Village at Vintage Ranch apartment projects, and the issue of undergrounding electrical poles came up for that particular project. And in that case, it involved some complexities with the railroad and being able to try and address that. It turned out there was a complication. The railroad was not really in favor of the undergrounding, and we had to kind of come up with an alternative. And in that case, what the applicant did was actually design the undergrounding. They were never able to get the railroad's approval for it, but they came up with a design nonetheless, and we were able to estimate the cost of that. And so that cost then was calculable, and the applicant for that project, that apartment project, paid the city money equivalent to that amount, and that's what we have set aside for future undergrounding projects. So there was a methodology, I guess, as to what I'm saying, is that sometimes these undergrounding projects really are infeasible for reasons that may involve a third party like Caltrans or the railroad. We can go through a methodology of coming up with a design, calculating the cost of that design, and that becomes the formula for then what the in-contribution amount might be. So it's an example of how we've applied that in the past.
Good, thank you. Okay, I think we get a sense we've concluded our conversation on this evening. Okay, are we ready to move on to general plan update schedule status report? All right, we'll move on to that item. General plan update schedule status report.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all for this, your participation on this portion. So I'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
Please.
Well, thank you again, Council and Planning Commission. Glad to discuss with you the general plan update. I have another brief presentation to share with you. And hopefully you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we can.
Good. I think I got the month right this time. Okay. Just a quick brief update or overview for you and others that may be new to the general plan update process. Today, our general plan, it's intended to guide the physical development of the city, its land use and character, and a whole lot more. But if we're just to look at the land use part of it today, the city is roughly about 50% residential, which is sort of in this sort of yellow and darker color. And we have a specific plan for we do have a specific plan for Watson Ranch here. We have the Vintage Ranch here and Lavinier. So about half of the city today residential. About a third is commercial industrial. Looking at Highway 29 here largely in our Green Island Industrial Park. And then about a fifth of open space. Of course, we have open space that we all maybe think about of American Canyon that's actually outside the city limits, being the Newell Open Space Reserve and those wonderful trails over there off of the Napa River. But within the city, it's about a fifth. But maybe if we were to look at the open space available to us, it'd be a larger number. So we are looking at a new general plan, of course, one that's a little more easily used in the encyclopedia style we have today. We're looking at more electronic searching, word search, and so to make it easy both to look at, view, and update. I think it was just sort of state-of-the-art improvements. We have a focus area, of course, I'll get more into, and then state law has changed a lot since the general plan was initially adopted in 1994. Some of the specialized areas is a qualified greenhouse gas climate action plan. I think we're all really looking forward to that. It'll help bake in climate action policies into the way the city grows in the future. We're planning on a program environmental impact report, which I think we're all familiar with as a great streamlined tool for development. The Broadway district and Watson Ranch are just two examples. Napa Junction, Napa Logistics Park is another one that has a program, EIR. It's a really good tool. So having one citywide will be just terrific. Some of the more recent things, of course, we had the COVID budget austerity that did cut into the budget to have consultants assist with the general plan update. Staff did work on it ourselves, and we had limited consultant services, but we had some slowdown because of the austerity. Nevertheless, we've had some great work done. We've had the Oat Hill general plan zone change that's increased our housing capacity. We've refined the Broadway plan. We have an economic development workshop in the works. We have a number of things that we've worked on that I think is going to help translate very well into the general plan. So we were able to make progress. We have a great consultant, general plan consultant team. The funds for the general plan have been restored into the budget, so we're kind of getting back into moving forward with their services. These firms have great specialized knowledge that will assist us in some really key areas. The Mintier Harnish project manager has recently retired, and I've been in conversations with one of the principals with the firm to get a replacement there. They have an individual in mind, and so that we're working forward on that. But we do have all these other consultants that are very well qualified to provide some great services. The elements in the general plan, for those that are into that, we have them listed here. There are a number that the state requires, and then there are optional ones that address local issues. Our optional elements, of course, being education, lifelong learning, utilities, economic development, technology. Those are important. And then we have special focus ones, also circulation in parks and open space. Just to give you a very quick update on the committees, of course, staff worked with the committees over the course of last year. The most recent one to go to the council with a work product was the Circulation Element Committee and their recommendation of the alternative 3 for the West Side Connector. And that will be coordinated into the circulation element for the general plan update. So that's nice to have that accomplishment. And just in case anyone forgot, here is a quick graphic of the alternative 3 that was the favored option, for a couple of different sub choices within there, and that will be vetted further in the general plan update. The education lifelong learning, we've had a number of meetings with that. If we look at education and lifelong learning, became clear that there are a wide variety of education lifelong learning resources that are out there. And so the committee really thought it was important to focus on, okay, there's a wide world out there, but what does the city control? And so if we were to look at what I would describe as the education lifelong learning food pyramid, we have at the top there services provided by the city. So that's pretty direct. Council does budget, move forward, and there are a number of programs that may not be available elsewhere that our community needs that the city can provide. But in a world of limited resources, it's the partnerships that are able to extend the city's reach. And so we have an excellent partner with the American Canyon Community and Parks Foundation, but others as well, that are able to provide much more expansive services for our residents. That's just a wonderful addition. And so having the partnerships really is a great benefit. And then there is another world out there of autonomous services that anyone can take advantage of. Museums in other cities, for example, just nonprofit organizations, educational districts, college, university, and even the Napa Valley Unified School District. Those are all autonomous from the city, and they provide wonderful services for our community. All that being said, there's a dynamic nature in which there's an interplay between these three. There are times when perhaps an autonomous organization could partner with the city for some reason or another. It could be a short or long-term reason. There could be services the city provides that get spun off to a partnership. It's very dynamic, but we do have these very distinct ways in which services are provided. And I think that's important when we're looking at a policy document that's adopted by the city that talks about what the city will be doing for furthering education and lifelong learning. The other important component that was added about a year ago by the City Council is focusing on furthering equity and inclusion in lifelong learning. I think we all recognize that there has been a very long legacy of unintentional, or perhaps intentional, mostly unintentional, policies and things that lead to disparities within our community. And so seeking that out and exploring it, I think, is important, so if there are blind spots, we're able to help remove them and enable more people to take advantage of the benefit of lifelong learning. We had a workshop on that topic, and we talked about the difference between equality and equity. These are sort of perhaps new topics to some people. And so when we look at what might be the difference, we'd say, someone might say, I treat everyone equal. Well, that would be an example of where everyone sort of gets the same thing. But people being who they are may have different needs. And so one size doesn't fit all. And having an awareness that maybe something that is not provided can be very useful to an important segment of our citizenry. And so that's where equity comes into play. It's providing people what they need, and it isn't necessarily the same thing for everyone. That's a hard issue, I think, to look forward to how to address. And there are documents, and there's a body of knowledge that can help guide us and navigate some of this. And we kind of describe them as the EL path to inclusion. And they come around to different ways of procedural equity. I think all of these things are things the city is doing already, and just being aware of them and how they're powerful. And perhaps as we're all working hard to improve and perfect the way we go about our business, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that it can all lead to greater inclusion and equity, which is, I think, what we all want to do. And so we're looking at public meetings, notification, outreach. It's how we conduct our procedures in a transparent manner. And we're always looking at ways to improve that. Structural equity in terms of our processes, our practices, policies, and that's the way in which we conduct our hearings. Going forward, in-house, when that's feasible is great, but then sustaining the ability of people to provide input from their home, or even other ways of surveys where people can do it on their own time, and those kinds of things, to be able to provide more ways people can involve themselves is a way to facilitate equity. And then distributional equity, that comes in with the budget. How does money get spent and who benefits from it? Who pays for it? Those are all very important issues that can lead to equity. The committee also talked about the idea of what helps all of the glue that helps all of this together is having a robust civic life in American Canyon. And I mean, American Canyon is already, I think, minded that way already, in the way that we're looking at helping others participate in everyday events that we have happen in the city is really a way of helping people to be involved. But taking that a step further, maybe looking to have, we'll say, trusted ambassadors of different groups in the city, people who maybe step up and are willing to kind of be the point person to outreach to their peers. And then in turn, too, perhaps there are opportunities in the city where we can have training, and the city can be more as better than hopefully we are now at being trusted people that can be communicated and more sensitive and aware. So we have a better means of coordinating and communicating within each other. So those are some of the topics that have come up so far in the education lifelong learning element. With the Park and Recreation, they have had a number of meetings with the working group. They've worked on vision with kind of a word cloud as kind of a fun product from that. They've worked on auditing the existing policies, what's been done, what may be needed for later, what could we drop, perhaps it's not a priority any longer. And then also there were a couple of meetings on Clark Ranch Park and updating the master plan, given some of the newer needs and some of the emerging issues that have happened there. We do have RRM design group. It has a scope of work for integrating a lot of these important master plan documents with the general plan, and with restoration of the contract dollars, we're looking at getting them on board and moving forward with that important effort. Some of the other important features that will come with the general plan that largely address state law, but they're also beneficial for American Canyon residents. It's not just a state law, they do have utility here as well. In the circulation element, there's a vehicle miles metric for measuring impacts. We've already had that discussed in, say, Oat Hill Project and others. And so there's more of a citywide way in which that can be addressed. So once again, kind of like the climate action plan, it's baked into the way in which we grow and develop. And so that's an important component that will be integrated into the general plan. The economic development, that's important to everybody. And so that is going to be updated. We have an element today, and that'll be updated. And we have EPS, which is a very well reputable company. They're also the one, by the way, that did the hotel marketing study. And in talking to the consultant there, he said, you know, that effort is going to fit as a nice work effort that can also contribute to the general plan. So that was kind of a nice benefit that came from that. And then we have climate adaptation and resiliency. And so that's another important component to the general plan, along with the air quality, greenhouse gas, and energy. And that really is going to be kind of taking the policies that the council just adopted last month a little step further into a more of an organized component to the general plan. The housing element is oftentimes it's sort of its own animal. It's a little different than a lot of the other elements. It's one of the few that requires the State Department of Housing and Community Development to certify the element. And every jurisdiction has to have an updated housing element. And the way it works in California is, we'll just say the state batches different areas of the city at a time, and everyone's on the same cycle. So for the Bay Area here, we're all on this 2022 to 2030 6-cycle update is the term that's used. And so it is required by law to be completed by December 2022. And just talking to our consultant earlier this week, he reminded me that there's a number of timeframes review for each CD. And so December 2022 is like the deadline, but the true deadline is about 6 months before, just because of the hearing times and the review times. And so that's something that we'll need to work on. We're fortunate. I have our regional housing needs assessment. This was just recently issued by the Association of Bay Area Governments. And this represents housing that the city needs to plan for during this 8-year period between 2022 and 2030. And the city is very well positioned with the Broadway District, Watson Ranch, Oat Hill, and we have other pre-applications for other housing projects. So we're very well positioned to be able to demonstrate that we exceed our capacity to accommodate the regional housing needs. So that's a real plus. One of the other components that's fairly new, certainly new for this housing element cycle, is a term called affirmatively furthering fair housing. And this similarly to our inclusion and equity component of the education lifelong learning, you can think of it as the same kind of component to the housing element, is to ensure that cities are deliberately working, not passively, but deliberately working towards relieving disparities from past patterns of segregation. And so there is a public outreach component to this that's very important. And so that will become a very high near-term priority as soon as we get rolling here. On the plus side, the Associated Bay Area Governments has funded a Napa Sonoma collaborative to help provide expertise and outreach to accomplish affirmatively furthering fair housing for each of the jurisdictions in the North Bay. They have a similar, in case we think we're special, they're doing it elsewhere in the Bay Area, but there's one for the Peninsula, the South Bay, and so on. But this is one for us. And so we'll be participating in that and taking advantage of that. So it's good news. Here's the general plan timeline that was adopted along with the scope. It contemplated finishing by July of this next calendar year. That isn't feasible at this time, but we are going to be working on making the schedule more efficient and making more of the processes concurrent And then also too, a lot of the work that we've done has answered some of the questions that were open back when the contract was let. As a consequence, we aren't going to be needing, I think, to do as many alternatives for land use because we've had a number of decisions and thought processes so far. So I think there's some efficiencies. I'm always hoping that we can do it under budget, but it does help certainly minimize surprises that can lead to the need for an augment. On the other side of things, given that the housing element is a little more complicated now than may have been realized when the contract was let, we're going to be talking about augmenting that component of the budget, but we're going to be looking for efficiencies elsewhere. So always mindful of cost. But generally, we're looking, apart from the housing element, which has its own deadline, we're looking at the balance of the general plan, hopefully being completed by around this time, maybe a little earlier in 2023. So I'm glad to answer any questions that you have. Marion, you mute?
Thank you for the presentation. It's just encompasses a lot of information. I noticed some of the elements have not been updated since 1994. So I think there's probably a lot of new information there that needs to be rated. Certainly housing is a big one. I'm sit on the ABAG exec board. We're the ones who give every city their allocation of housing, but I'm satisfied that Canyon with our plans for future housing development, we're more than meet that. So that puts us in a very good spot. Vice Mayor Joseph.
Yes, well, thank you for the update, and I appreciate that. A couple of things that strike me. Number one, almost as a broad theme in all of this ought to be sustainability. You talk about the climate action plan being baked into the general plan, and I think that's exactly what we need to think of the general plan as. It's not just some elements and some programs and objectives, but broad themes. Sustainability strikes me, which relates to the jobs housing balance, because if people can afford to live and work here, you've addressed affordable housing in some fashion, you've addressed livable wages and jobs in another. It also reduces vehicle miles traveled because you could ride your bike here if you live here and work here. So I think a lot of that, I just want the council and the commission to think of that in terms of developing the general plan, specifically the vision statement, because the plan ultimately attempts to translate that vision into specific realities. So I think that's important. I think somewhere along the line, we need to talk about our urban limit line. It comes up, I think, in 2030. But I do think as part of this, we ought to be forthright saying, these are the areas that we think need to be looked at down the road for annexation into the city and what that means in terms of development. There's a number of parcels in play now, and I think we just need to figure out that ought to be part of the general plan in my mind. The last one is near and dear to me as a former finance guy, and that is we ought to cost out the general plan, meaning what does it look like at build out? Land uses will generate some revenues, they'll generate expenses. Some of the policies that we have revenue opportunities, but usually expense opportunities. When you take it all together and assume everything happens the way with the general plan envisions, do the revenues cover the expenses? And in that context, there's got to be a qualitative element too, because you can make this a real moneymaker if you turn everything into hotels and no residential benefits. So it's also got to be preserving a high quality of life. So that's the biggest thing that I think we need to do, because if we develop something that is structurally imbalanced, we're simply setting our next generation up to not only worry about climate change, but worry about a community that's financially out of balance. So sustainability, urban limit line, build-out budget. Thank you.
Sustainability to me says we also have to look at the economics of the area. I mean, if we continue to build warehouses that, wages are what, $15 to $18 an hour, that's not going to be very sustainable. Yet we're using up all the real estate we have. So I think there has to be a marketing component to that, the economic development component to this is, okay, where are we situated within the Bay Area? We know that are kind of a prime location for, folks who want to commute. That makes the assets we have here are very amenable to families. A lot of them are here because of what we have here, schools, outdoor space, safe community. But what do we do to talk about who do we want to draw here? I mean, there's a component of the tech community that's not here at all. And that's where a lot of the higher economic opportunities exist. So I think we need to come up with a portion of that plan is how do we market American Canyon? How do we draw more of that here before all the space is used up? I know many years ago, talked with somebody who worked for Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Oh, wow, they'd be interested in this. How much you need? Oh, about 300 acres. That's not going to work for American Canyon, but certainly there have to be other opportunities like that to look at. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Cooper, thank you for the update. I thoroughly appreciated it. I'm really enjoying the general plan update process. Looking at the timeline that you gave, as far as some of these components haven't been updated in quite a while, and given that it may be quite a while before we do another update, and thinking specifically of the new climate action component that we have implemented that came about as a result of the fuel station moratorium, and recognizing the key role that the students have played in this, which are, as Vice Mayor Joseph just commented upon, the next generation. I want to suggest or somehow find out if it's possible that we can have a specific public hearing for the land use piece related to the climate action at the high school, so that the students who are going to be directly impacted by this, and hopefully will be future leaders and residents of our city, can participate and give feedback and information to us. Is that something that we can consider, or how do we go about? Because I was particularly struck by this idea when Commissioner Goff mentioned at our last commissioner meeting that they have a Citizens Academy at the high school. So I think, Citizens Academy, general plan, these could be our next council members running for office in, a few years. And I would love to see some way to engage them more deeply. Thank you.
Great idea. That'd be a great way to inspire some young people to get more involved.
It's a great suggestion.
Anybody, other council member, commissioner, want to comment? I'd like to say that I think some of these, and I did see the list. We don't have them on the screen here. Those that were last done in 1994, that was around. What's the plan to update those? Certainly, we have the new one on sustainability, climate action to consider as well. What do we merge that with, or is it a standalone?
For a lot of these elements, Mayor, there is terrific guidance from the state. They have a very comprehensive general plan update guidance that we can work with, and our consultants can provide us expertise as well on updating these. But we'll be having specific workshops on each of these elements to get feedback from the community on what's important to accomplish for each of the elements.
Very good. Councilmember Albadamos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Brent, thank you for the update. I am so excited that we're finally updating our general plan. I just wanted to really quickly offer my support for Commissioner Wong's idea. I love the idea of including the high school kids in the general plan update process. When I first was elected, we used to have a student member of, I think, PCS.
Yes.
And I don't know what happened to that, but that was super cool. And I don't know if we still have it it's just vacant. I thought that was super cool. And I think getting the kids engaged as much as possible is brilliant. So thank you for that, Commissioner Wong.
We did have a comment that was brought up with Ms. Goff about having a non-voting member of a student from the high school on city council. That was the future agenda item I proposed. We certainly could revisit that, take some action on it. And I think that maybe that might meet some of what you're talking about, Councilmember. Other comments?
They do, I'll let you know, they do still have that student member on PCS.
Okay, thank you. Are we ready for public comment? Public comment, have we received any?
I have received no public comments and there are no hands raised at this time.
All right. Well, I'll close public comment. I really appreciate the presentation. We got our work cut out for us, folks. Yes. But I think, this is one of these very essential pieces that requires a lot of public engagement on it. And I think it's more than just, I think maybe we need to think more about just this. If Zoom works for now. The point is there's public gathering. It's more than just come to City Hall, we'll have a conversation. A lot of times to really make it effective, you need to go where people are. You need to consider in their daily schedule. I think some of the good community meetings we've had been later in the evening. Like we always say, start around 7 o'clock when people go home. Heavy hors d'oeuvres and childcare seem to work. But we had some very good, well-attended meetings based on those being sensitive to the needs of the community. I think it might be an idea as well to have kind of with each one of you pose a question. What's in that? What are the key pieces that you need to, so people have kind of a heads up before they come in. These are types of things we're going to be talking about. Again, this is how we conduct our public outreach to maximize our effort and gain input from the community as well. Anything, brother? All right. So this is more of a receive and hear it and share our ideas. I think I hear wheels turning in people's heads. This is good work. I really appreciate everybody's participation in this thing. And we do have a lot of new good things to look at. I think probably the climate action one is the one that's clearly on many fronts so evident all the time. So we need to be there. Commissioner Altman.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out there that the one thing that doesn't, it's not an element, it doesn't come up, but we've sort of touched on it. And in the presentation, Director Cooper touched on it as well, but transparency. And I think this, Commissioner Wong's comment about getting high schoolers involved. I think, Mr. Mayor, your comments about bringing us out to the public, I'm a believer that one of the things that as officials, it's incumbent on us to do is actually educate the public about how our government operates. I think if you ask the majority of people, they have no real idea. And it's why if you ever check out Nextdoor, you see some of these absolutely ludicrous comments where, according to some of the folks on Nextdoor, every single one of us is getting paid exorbitant amounts of money by developers and others to make decisions in their benefit, which we all know is absolute nonsense. But I think the more we get out in the public and the more transparent we can be about what we're doing and the more education we can provide as part of this process, the better off we and future generations all will be. So that's my soapbox for now.
Hey, well said. Well said. Thank you. Any other comment before we wrap it up for the evening? Oh. Commissioner Navarro.
Yes. Well, thanks, Brent, again for the presentation, and I look forward to the next steps and really getting, digging in and getting some traction on the plan and getting it updated and automated. I think the automation will go a long way to what I think is also a challenge and speaks to transparency and trying to go out to the community. It's really, maybe some of the consultants can help, or maybe we can look at some benchmarks or other best practices of real community engagement. I mean, we don't have a lot of attendees at our meetings. It's, sometimes these land use things are not real exciting, and it gets a little over technical and it gets people's eyes glossy. But really figuring some better ways to make it more fun and exciting and futuristic and planning, and how it can be just more engaging and get people more involved, and how we as the official, public officials can also help with public engagement in a better level. But I think one step going will help is making it more accessible technically. Like right now, you can't just go and check out the general plan very easily. And so we go to the students, and is it this big binder they got to look through or what? So public engagement, some factor of that, I think, is part of the sauce in making this big update should be included. That's all I have. Thanks for everybody's input.
Good thought. We'll generate some excitement around it. Get people engaged that way. I don't know, maybe I've seen one demonstration of that where general plan laid out on the floor, big like on a map. I'll move pieces around, see what happens. I think actually that's the way I heard the general plan for the city was laid out that way, where the it was the water office here. It's now part of the rec center.
Yeah.
Things that engage people in the process, I think, are important. But you have to figure out what's important, what makes it interesting for them. Yeah. You're right. A lot of this could just be too technical and speaking my language. I'll say you have to be able to communicate to the community's understanding of it. I mean, people are intelligent. They're just not technically speaking the technical language. So, okay, let's translate it. Put it in terms that are meaningful to them. Appreciate the work this evening. We're about ready to wrap up here on this thing. Anything further, Mr. Cooper?
Oh, that's all I have for you tonight.
Okay, Mr. Holley? That's it? All right. Well, I really appreciate all the effort from everybody this evening, putting this together, and your time, and your contribution's been very valuable. So thank you. That being said, we've completed our work for the evening. We're adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Bye.
Good night, all. Thanks.